The New START treaty is the last remaining nuclear agreement between the United States and Russia, signed in 2010 by then US President Barack Obama and his Russian counterpart Dmitry Medvedev. This week, President Vladimir Putin announced he was suspending Russia's participation, saying the treaty was absurd at a time when NATO was helping Ukraine fight Russian forces. He said he had ordered Russia's ground-based nuclear weapons to combat readiness and pledged further investment.
We will continue mass production of air-based hypersonic Kinzhal systems and will start mass supplies of sea-based Zircon hypersonic missiles.
But analysts say Moscow's suspension of the nuclear treaty is unlikely to have an immediate impact.
It was going to expire anyway, so having the end of the treaty come is not going to change very much in the substance of military relations between the two.
Russia and the United States together hold over 90% of the world's nuclear weapons. The New START treaty limits both sides to 1,550 warheads and allows each side to inspect the other's nuclear sites. The inspections were put on hold 3 years ago due to the pandemic and have not resumed, which Washington blames on Moscow.
It is in both countries' interests because it puts limits on the nuclear arms race. And ultimately, the US can outspend Russia if it wants to. It's a much bigger economy. It's not under sanctions. More likely, Russia wants to use this as a bargaining chip to say to the Biden administration, your support for Ukraine has costs.
US President Joe Biden called Russia's suspension of New START a grave error. The United Nations Secretary General called for Moscow to return to the deal. Despite warming ties between Beijing and Moscow, China Wednesday also called for Russia and the US to abide by the nuclear agreement.
We hope the two sides will properly resolve their differences through constructive dialogue to ensure the smooth implementation of the treaty.
There are fears of an arms race not only between Russia and the United States, but also among other nuclear powers, including China.
How can anyone make the case to China that they need to limit their program if the US and Russia have no limits on their own?
President Putin said, without citing evidence, that some in the US were considering restarting atomic tests, and if so, Russia would conduct its own. The United States, Russia, France, Britain and China stopped nuclear testing in the 1990s. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.